each other,
passed away,
robberies,
before his death,
gun violence,
prison,
money, power,
gun epidemic,
mass violence,
especially violent.
Renegades.
hell on earth,
probation, deadly consequences,
Protection.
hurting innocent people
Chicago
like
police spend
Epidemic of violence.
Dangerous
gang
neighborhoods.
life,
Penitentiary 10
conceal their identities,
shots
The most
fired.
violent start of the year.
military hate guns, innocent people dying, bullets,
A drive-by.
trial,
Shooting of an enemy.
I want to graduate college and see a safer future for everyone.
In my clinical experience here and also in Southeast Asia exposed me to violence a lot. And I realized early that most people who die from gunshot wounds die where they're shot. It doesn't matter how fast the ambulance is, it doesn't matter how good we are at the hospital. So for me as a clinician, let alone a prevention person, in order to make the greatest inroads into mortality from firearm violence, I need to keep people from getting shot in the first place. And the work we do is a direct outgrowth of that realization.
I worked at the New York City Mayor's office in the Criminal Justice Division. And it was really this experience that made me want to become a social scientist, because I encountered so many times where I was asked to do sort of a memo advising the mayor on some sort of policy or program to implement, and I would find in doing research that there just wasn't enough evidence. It really taught me the importance of high quality science to inform public policy.
This is going to sound like bragging, but in all honesty, UC Davis is the best place on the planet to do this work. We're standing in front of the state capitol. We work with unique data that California collects and no other state collects. They make those data available to us for research. They help fund our research. And at the other end of the process, right behind me, works a legislature that sets a very high value on science in its work and asks, doctor, tell us what the science says we should do. And when we tell them, they do it. But they don't even stop there. They say, great, we've done it. Now be sure that the effects of what we did are what we think they're going to be. There's no other place that this combination exists or could exist.
In 2012, Sandy Hook happened, and that was one of those mass shootings that really hit me. So I felt compelled to look into this, and I knew that I had the skill set that would be needed to contribute to the solution. But what I ended up doing was I kept thinking, like, why aren't the politicians, why aren't people looking at the evidence base to sort of figure out what needs to be done here? I realized that there's this huge gap in this field, and I was really motivated to try to use my skill set in epidemiology to fill that gap.
I think you're seeing that increasingly in academia, where groups of multidisciplinary scholars are coming together to help solve a big problem or think about a big idea. Sort of different perspectives and ways of looking at a problem and thinking about it, and different methodological approaches to address the problem. You know, when you're just sort of focused in your own discipline, you can sort of lose sight of the forest for the trees.
Philanthropy has been critical to our work all along, through our entire 30-year existence. Ordinarily, for a complex problem like firearm violence, the backbone of research support would come from the federal government, as it does, let's say, for motor vehicle injuries, or these days for opioid problems, or for heart disease and cancer. And that has made us, throughout our existence, critically dependent on private philanthropic support for what we do. And as we move into other forms of violence, the funding that's available from public sources will remain far short of what is needed. But there's much more to violence than firearm violence. And our big idea is going to take us into those other territories, into domestic violence and into community violence.
I'm really excited about this big idea, because we want, for my daughter and for any kid, you want them to be able to grow up in a place where they're not fearing violence, they're not afraid to go to school. And I think it's just really important research that needs to be done.
In 5 years, what I hope and plan to accomplish is the assembly of a team that brings the additional expertise that we need to take on those new areas of work. 10 years from now, if not sooner, I think we will be able to look back on what has happened since the big idea began and point to concrete improvements in the human condition here in California, across the country, that are direct results of the research we've done and the work we've done with policymakers and others to translate research results into differences on the ground.